So we must be at about nearly day 90 now, plodding on through lockdown, and it's been another confusing week full of twists and turns. Haven't done a video a while because I wasn't on the way to work. And so where are we up to? Well, we're still spiraling through the level multiverse, and it seems we're going to be spat out of the level system we all know and love, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to get into the traffic light system. Now, it's been more confusing because Waikato and Northland are doing their own thing. They're in different systems, and the government, I think they've, strong leadership. They're really pushing for this 90% double vaxxed, and Auckland is closing in on the 90% single vaxxed, and so I think we'll get there. And for the places that are a ways off the 90%, I think you'll find just a few COVID cases are probably going to change that equation. And although they would have loved to have everyone 90% double vaxxed before having COVID in your area code, I think the psychology of it had to go like this. It had to be a big rush that everyone needs a bit of COVID around them to make sure they do get vaccinated. And it'll be, I guess, interesting to see how many people have had one dose and don't get the second. So I think a lot will get that second dose. I'd expect, a good conversion rate there. And so where are we up to? It's still super confusing. So the government said Waikato is now back in a traditional level 2, and they haven't made many missteps, but I think this was a main one. What they announced is that in Hamilton, in Waikato, you're going to level 2. You know what that means? You can go to museums. Now, I had to Google, having lived in Hamilton more than once, is there even a museum in Waikato, in the Hamilton? And who is really hanging out for museums? We're hanging out to meet people that we need to meet, that we like to meet. We're hanging out to eat food that we need to eat, that we like to eat. Museums. Anyway, they led with museums, and they keep mentioning museums. I mean, museums are great, but I mean, it's mainly foreign tourists which prop up the museums. It does seem a bit weird when you go to a museum to learn about Maori culture and carvings when that isn't something that's actually extinct, or is it? Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just off the mark there. But so they lead with museums. The other thing is schoolboy Chris Hipkins. He's been getting to step up to the big boy plate. He's been doing more of the stand-up press conferences. And it's really good when you get the non-Jacinda people speaking, because they tend to make mistakes and you get what they're really feeling, and they go a bit off the script and they get agitated. So Chris Hipkins, apparently, he came up with the idea that maybe Aucklanders could leave. Well, the first thing they did is they said, Aucklanders, you'll get Christmas. And then after about a few weeks, they realized, most people want to leave Auckland for Christmas. Okay, so they had a rethink, and Chris Hipkins dreamed up an idea. And hey, all ideas, there's probably just the least bad idea in this situation. There's no clear good ideas. Was that you have timed for leaving Auckland. You'd have little blocks or something, and I guess you get to go to the beach, you get to go to Whangamata for these amount of hours, and then you got to get back to Auckland. Anyway, not so practical. And quickly, everyone else in the Labour government threw him under the bus and said, hey, that wasn't our idea. He came up with that all on his own. We're not doing that. By the way, that was just him. And so he's been taking a bench seat more recently, and they've had Grant Robertson, who, he seems so smart. Anyway, so Grant Robertson's leading the show, and you do get more bits of information because he tends to get a bit more agitated and a bit more confrontational with people. But Jacinda's now on a world tour of trying to promote vaccination while also not trying to garner too much attention from the anti-vax crowd. Seems to be having some success, but not complete success on that front. And so we meander on. Big news for tomorrow night, or tonight, 11:59. You can go outside, but you can have more of you. So this is the first step of Auckland looking what the new world is going to look like. And I guess we're never going to get down to zero. And so, well, how's the country going to handle this? We don't know. Nobody knows. We've only seen good examples of where it's gone really badly. The countries where it does seem to go well are mostly Asian countries, so we don't seem to hear really how they did it or seem to have an appetite to really replicate them. But anyway, so this movement forward is a positive one. I think people need a bit of a boost that we're doing the right thing. And Freedom Day is upon us. It's not going to come as quickly as some would want, but I think most people had in their mind 1st of December, and it seems like the government is really going to make sure 29th of November the decision goes the way they think it should for everyone in Auckland. And so what's going to happen then? Who knows? Who knows? Big equation. I mean, if the weather has been so bad in Auckland, like just not cold, just grey, like forcing people indoors really. But if they had days like looks like today's going to be, if they could guarantee that, I think we can make level 3 or level 2 traffic light green or whatever, or even amber work really well. I think what would be wonderful if the council actually made some things more outdoor in preparation for this, just so you could eat outdoor. It's all about outdoor, everything outdoor, everything. So I think this could go on for years. We should build the outdoor things. But I know in the States you see they have outdoor gyms and stuff. That would be good to figure out. Swimming pool's still not open. Apparently it's because of the toilets. Fair enough. So we still need a bit more carrot, a bit more encouragement, I think. But anyway, we plod on. Apart from that, the other issue which they've been ducking and diving is schools reopening. Now, apparently an announcement is coming. There's been several announcements, but we really need to figure out what's happening with school, because that immediately frees up a lot of people who actually work as well. So they really need to make sure they push forward with schools, because I think the evidence is pretty settled. Kid-to-kid transmission in school is not very common. The illness isn't that bad. Huge ramifications if you don't go to school. Every culture, every country has used school. Seems to say school is quite good for civilization and good for children's development. Everyone. I haven't heard of one that really doesn't, apart from war-torn areas. So we know that school's probably up there with drinking water in terms of what it adds to society. So the main impacts for kids are basically, they might lose some elderly people, but for the kids themselves, the main impact is educational. And how is that going to work? I mean, a kid's going to be like, it's going to be like the first day of school for a whole bunch of kids. And how are we going to deal with that? But we've got to get kids back to school. Same with people in offices. There is a problem where people now are used to remote, that they won't come back into the office, and should they come back into blah, 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 blah. But I think they have to take the lead here for kids. And let's just do some outdoor classrooms. I mean, when we go to Samoa, it seems like they've got this thing sorted. You have your valet. It's not really indoor, but you got a roof over your head. That's the main thing. So next winter could be pretty prickly, but for now, I think if they don't go for it now, they're really up creek with what to do later on. And so after initially saying, yeah, we're gonna give you boosters, but don't hold your breath for this year. It's gonna be months away. And I think there were a few angry letters written by important people to the government, and then, like always, Australia just said, well, there's boosters for all. It doesn't matter your risk. It doesn't matter if you're immunocompromised. It doesn't matter if you're a health worker. Just everyone can get a booster. And so I think we are going to slowly, as usual, head to that space. But as always, we seem to have the doses. We seem to have the manpower to do it. We just seem to take our time with actually executing on it. So yeah, so we will see. But I think boosters for all makes it very simple and doesn't sound to make it very fair. I know people in the States who were in that situation where boosters you had to qualify for them, and there's a lot of gaming of the system there to say, oh yeah, I do this job, I do that. I think from a simplicity point of view, it's just get them out there, and I think that'll probably give people confidence that, if this person's had 3 doses and they don't seem to be doing too badly, and they don't seem like the best, fittest candidate to get 3 doses, and they're doing fine, well, maybe I should get 3 doses, or maybe I should get 1, which would be fantastic as well. So things keep boxing on. Another weird thing the health system did, and it's quite difficult to figure out, but they wouldn't release Maori vaccination data. So this is like a trigger button issue instantly. You didn't do what to Maori, because we know Maori vaccination rate is low. Was that by design, or was that part of the collateral fallout of the way they wanted to do it? They certainly want a lot of control. They want a lot of control of the process, which means that you got an instant clash. I would have to say, I might get in trouble for this, but there's generally a lot of distrust for Maori of the health system, and equally it seems the health system doesn't trust Maori to make decisions for themselves. So they have a genuine disagreement there. They have some bad blood, or they just don't trust each other. So what to do about it? So they made a plan to get the unvaccinated Maori data, which on the surface seems like, well, for what they want to achieve, that sounds pretty reasonable. Obviously, what you're going to do with the data might be of interest to a lot of people, but maybe it's their right to have that data. So a bit of a complicated one, but the Waiparera John Tamahiri, and if it wasn't for him, I don't know who would have done this, because this is where I get lost in the legal aspects. He took them to the High Court and said, you should release this data because you're not upholding the treaty principles. And the Ministry of Health is then defending itself against the legal system of New Zealand, which is weird. Anyway, they lost. And I think, if anything, that's just a celebration of don't just accept stuff. And I don't know that there was necessarily ill intentions about hiding the data, as your mind might jump to that place. It might just be like, if you make all these decisions without scrutiny, not all of them are going to be perfect. And I think that's good display of a democratic or a system where it has some balance and checks. So they've got the data, and just looking at the Maori vaccination rate, it seems to be ticking up pretty well, which is good. And I think there may be more pockets and more feeling that people have had the information they don't want to be vaccinated, which I think we have to accept that outcome, rather than saying, oh, you don't have health education or you don't have health literacy, which sounds like the other smack in the face. Just tell someone, oh yeah, you're health illiterate, that's why you've come to that conclusion. There may be people who just genuinely don't choose to have it, and they've had a good think about it, and they've used their trusted resources, and they've done all the right things, but they come to that conclusion, which I think we have to accept for and plan for. Now, the carrot and stick approach was going to be, okay, you live in an unvaccinated world. You live in this other separate society of New Zealand where you can't do stuff. And people are calling it apartheid, and they call everything apartheid nowadays. But I mean, my understanding of apartheid is, there was separatism, but there was also, and I mean, I think I had minds think about South Africa. They were running around and killing a whole lot of black people for being black. I don't think that's going to happen with unvaccinated, but apartheid, good trigger word, chuck it in there. I mean, I've heard the economic people say, oh, the Auckland housing market's like apartheid because young people can't buy a house. I mean, that's a super stretch. That's, I mean, probably disrespectful to people who've been through proper apartheid. Is this going to be apartheid? I don't think so. But you might have some separation for these big events. And I think one of them is the government saying that, but also for the businesses. I don't know if you can, with our mindset, can you push this all back to the people who are these entrepreneurs trying to run an event and say, look, you have to decide if you're going to admit vaccinated or unvaccinated. I think it's actually on the side of business owners saying, look, this is what we expect you to have: one set of rules for vaccinated, one set of rules for unvaccinated. And I think that top-down approach might help small businesses, which we should side on at the moment. I do agree that have government deciding what to do is generally not a great thing, but I think in this case this might help small businesses a lot. And there's, they've been hurting. It won't probably affect the big time players in the space because they already they can ride out these waves. But the small businesses, if they could alleviate that would be wonderful for them, I'm sure. You don't want some mom and pop getting into a fight with someone about how they've decided to run their business. They just say, hey, look, I'm just trying to not get closed down by a COVID case and I become a place of interest. This is what the government told me to do. This is what we're doing. So I think that's good, and they should really think of other ways to side with small business. But that could be a win for small businesses. You don't decide. How much business are they going to miss out? Well, not a heck of a lot if you look at the numbers. The amount of unvaccinated is not high, and there's probably some exemptions thrown in there. There's probably some people who will eventually get vaccinated. What I don't understand is, what if you're 11? Like, all of these things work for a very adult mindset. So if you're 11, okay, you don't get vaccinated currently. Fine. You get to leave Auckland with your family. Then what happens if you turn 12? Say you're turning 12 in January. Well, now suddenly you're eligible and you're unvaccinated. You might not even have a phone. You might not have a smartphone. How do you download your vaccine certificate? How are you going to show that? How are you going to QR scan? How are you going to register with the business? How are you going to wait and say, well, I'm eligible for my first dose. My family's on holiday now and it's January and I've got my first dose, but I've got to wait 3 weeks for my second dose. So can I go to Christmas in the park with the rest of the family? Who knows? There's all these little problems, these grey zones, which I think any government would do well just to try and downplay, because, what do you do? There's no clear answers for some of this, and I guess it's a case of which battles you really choose to promote and publicise. Still, the big one is the whare paku. How do you go to the toilet? I mean, you're going to have a barbecue. Someone's going to get a bit of a rumbly tumbly. Who cooked the sausages? You got to let people go to the toilet, even if there's a bit of risk there. I mean, nobody wants a code brown at their own barbecue, where someone just has to fill their pants rather than go into the toilet. And I mean, should we just go to all barbecues wearing adult diapers and be like the toddlers, and you just box on while you're eating? You just whatever you're doing, you just keep boxing on. If you're urinating, you just keep going for it, just like a toddler does. We'll have to regress back to that. Who knows? But I think they should have a way, because on big scale things, there is a way to check the ventilation properties of a situation that it is actually deemed as outdoor. What is that definition? And if you could put a little meter there and say, look, this meets the standard of airflow. Because I've been at someone's house and they had that pull down cafe blinds, And so then they're pulled down, they're pulled down, they're pulled down, and then they're close to the bottom, but there's still wind going through it. Is that outdoor now? Indoor, outdoor? Indoor, outdoor flow is a minefield now, because what's indoor, what's outdoor? Anyway, we will see. Tomorrow is going to be apparently the announcement of what's happening with schools. And of course, some people are going to schools, but not many. And that's going to have a big impact on society and big impact of kids. Of course, they're on the home straight for the actual school year finishing. So, it seems like it's just a bit of a exercise. And of course, the end of school tends to be where the movies are just playing continuously. But I think it would be good for kids to actually have a bit of a experience outside of Zoom. But let's see. A lot of testing today, holy crap. What the hell is happening? It's all go. It's taking it seriously. Usually this is a ghost town for the testing. You have to make sure I don't walk into the wrong area, which I usually do. Okay, so a lot of testing. Good on you. Good on you. Okay, now time to sign out. Hopefully another video this week after Wednesday.